because like Detroit is my second hometown. How many of you know this? My wife, Rana, who runs our company, is from Detroit, and Detroit suburbs, and we spent lots and lots and lots of time here. The error of the fact that you can trade billions and hundreds of billions of dollars and make enormous sums and have just ungodly income inequality is over. The error of what Rudolf Hilferding, the great economist, called finance capital is at its end. But what is the only remaining real capital we have left? When credit's hard to get, where bank loans are hard to get, where people can't move billions around at the blink of an eye, there's only one source of capital left, and it's the kind of thing we're talking about. It's the kind of capital that come in human beings, in real people, in our communities, and in our creativity. This is our moment. The way out of this time lies in each and every one of the efforts that we are doing, not at the national level, but at the local, the regional, the state, and the provincial level. Why creative economy? Because that's the most innately human characteristic. Human beings are innately motivated to harness, to mobilize, to utilize our creativity. Creativity is this innately human characteristic. It's within all of us. And it's not just about knowledge-based industries or information-based industries or technology-based industries. It's about a much broader set of industries. Now, in this economic transformation, what makes us all the same? The techie and the artist, the musician and the designer, the professional and the entertainer, is our creativity. We are all part of the same fundamental, even though we see ourselves as being different, we are all part of the same fundamental economic transformation and part of the same economic class. At the frontier of capitalism, in the advanced world, the only source of economic growth is one: human creativity. At the turn of just the last century, 100 years ago today, if you look at the US, the Canadian, the English, the European economy, about 50% of the entire workforce just a century ago was working in or around agricultural production. 50%. Less than 5% of us, 5% of the workforce was in the creative economy, which John has dubbed. Science, technology, entrepreneurship, innovation, arts, culture, entertainment, and the professions. Scroll forward to 1950. We had made the transition to industrial capitalism. Now, more than 50% of the workforce worked in or around the manufacturing. We were a blue-collar industrial economy. As late as 1980, depending on which statistics you read, between 10 to 12 to 15% of the workforce in the advanced countries worked in the creative sector of the economy. Since 1980 and today, we have seen a fundamental economic shift. In the United States alone, more than 20 million new jobs were created in that creative sector of the economy. Today, in the United States, roughly a third of the workforce, a third of all workers, work in that creative sector of the economy: science, technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, arts, culture, design, and entertainment, and the professions: law, healthcare, education, and the rest. If you divide our economy into three sectors: creative, service, and manufacturing, the creative sector of the economy accounts for more than 50% of all wages and salaries paid, more than the other two sectors combined. How do we upskill? How do we improve the 45% of our economy and the 45% of our jobs that are in the service sector? You see, making a full creative economy which recognizes and values the creative efforts of all, that's the key. Extending the boundaries of the creative economy beyond 30 and 35 and 40. The region that will have long-lasting competitive advantage, and it will be forged in this period of turmoil. The region that takes what we call the first mover advantage, that says we're going to move beyond the current debate. We're not just going to focus on technology and entertainment and arts. We're going to stretch it. We're going to move it out. We're going to bring it to manufacturing, service, across the whole economy. We're going to build one creative economy and one creative society. That's the one that will win. That's the one that will become the model, not just for itself, but for the world. The first principle is that every single human being is creative. That's the first principle. That's the core of the argument. Every single human being is creative. Two principles. The creative economy has to be sustainable. It can no longer waste natural resources. It equally can no longer waste human resources. We have to cut all the waste out from the natural and the environmental and the human. We have to build a system that is resilient and sustainable. Brings me to my second principle. Every single human being is creative. What that means is that creativity does not respect the social categories that we have imposed on ourselves. The social categories that we have imposed on ourselves. You know, if you have kids, you understand this intuitively. Creativity doesn't respect gender, does it? It comes equally in little boys and little girls, equally creative. Creativity has no time for ethnic difference, no patience for nationality. When I wrote Flight of the Creative Class, what was the message there? The reason the United States was a great economy was simple. It has little to do with our raw materials and our market size and this nonsensical thing we call American ingenuity. It has everything to do that the United States was the world's first economy that understood it could prosper by attracting the best and the brightest, the hungriest, the most ambitious, and the most entrepreneurial in the world. From Andrew Carnegie, a Scotsman in steel, to Andrew Grove, a Hungarian at Intel. Creativity knows nothing about race. It doesn't care if you're able-bodied or disabled. That is why openness matters. That is why diversity matters. Sure, it's the right thing to do. Sure, it's the ethical thing to do. Sure, it's the moral thing to do. But if you want to grow, it's one of the most important levers you have. Now, this region has a tremendous legacy of immigration and diversity that I've come to know well. It has one of the most vibrant artistic and cultural scenes the world has ever witnessed in music. And I looked at your Bohemian Index quotient. It's about in the top 20 in the United States, from the MC5 to Iggy Pop to Motown to Smokey and Aretha to Eminem to Kid Rock to Jack White and the White Stripes, all points in between. Think about that legacy. And when I was here last time, I made a challenge. I said Detroit has to belly up to the bar and really respect that and learn how to use that. And I said I know that when the one terminal in the airport is the Iggy Pop Memorial Airport Terminal. That's just a fun, and many others. But recognizing, and in our analysis that Kevin and I and others have done, what we found. When you break down an economy into what powers economic growth, and you look inside the creative economy, and you look at business and finance, and science and technology, and high-level management, and all the rest, this little thing we call arts, culture, and entertainment, that we always thought was the thing that sucked up all the money, that the rich companies gave the money to, that we were dependent upon, sponsors. This little thing we call arts, culture, and entertainment, which is a big, big segment of the economy, is as important as business and finance and management and science and technology. It is an economic generator in its own right. So creativity requires harnessing every human being, and creativity requires diversity. And there's a third point to my work. Tom Friedman. He's told us now, in plain and simple terms, the world is flat. The world is flat. You know, there's 6 billion people competing and organizing themselves, competing from anywhere. Place is no longer important. We've conquered distance. We've conquered distance. So cities are going to start to decay. They're going to start to fray. And we're going to move to a technology-connected but placeless world. You've seen the images on the commercial. You see the guy in his laptop sitting on a hillside, or the woman's there connecting to work by some beautiful lakefront. Bupkis. Absolute bupkis. The year 2008 is the first year in world history that more than 50% of us, more than 50% of the 6 billion people who populate the earth live in urban centers. That's not just in the advanced world. That's in the underdeveloped and emerging economies. Half of all people live in urban centers. We are organizing ourselves into bigger and bigger cities. The U.S. is a pretty urban nation.